to this now. There were 14 legal representatives that argued last Friday in the Marathon Constitutional Court hearing of the IEC's application for a postponement of the local government elections. Of the 14, 9 were white men, 4 were black men, and only 1 was a white woman. None of the parties to that matter briefed a black woman advocate to present their arguments. It raises the question about transformation of the legal professions. Figures from 2017 indicated then that white South Africans comprised 58% of practicing attorneys and 63% of advocates. Why does all of this matter? Well, in a country where exclusion and oppression manifested in the practice of and access to the law has the generations, for generations reflected the country's history of racial segregation and exclusion. This means that legacy has barely been disturbed 27 years into democracy. Or does it mean that? Joining me now are Chairperson and Deputy Chairperson of the Legal Practice Council, Kathleen Matolo-Dlepu, and Advocate Anthea Platt. Thank you for joining me, ma'am, and Chairperson and Deputy Chairperson. So this is an observation that I made. I don't know, maybe I'm engaging in what will be frowned upon among some liberal circles in politics in our country, that I'm engaging in an exercise of counting black, black, white, white, Indian, colored, etc. Or am I onto something? Is there something for us to be concerned about here? Let me ask you, Chairperson, to kick us off on this conversation.
Thank you, Thulasizwe and your listeners. You are correct. The transformation of the legal profession is far from being what we want it to be. It's nowhere near the demographics of our country. The black females and the black males are still underrepresented. So basically, it will, as long as something is not done to intervene, it will remain the same.
And Advocate Platt, the Deputy Chairperson of the Legal Practice Council, to what extent did what I observed on Friday represent the picture in day-to-day court sittings, the underrepresentation of women, but in particular of black women, in as far as, let's say, the advocate's profession is concerned?
Thank you. Thank you so much. And yes, it's quite a concern, and it does happen in the lower courts as well. If you look at it, the female are only 30% of the advocate's profession. So we only are 30%, where in the country we are 51%. So the gender representation in the legal profession is still very skewed. It's still very low. It's still majority male. And of that, when you look at white versus black, white males are 31% of the numbers. And hence you will find that in these precedent-setting matters, you will find white males there more often than not. And it's something that we need to address. The Legal Practice Council has looked at the legal sector code in an attempt to assist with the skewed briefing patterns. So yes, there are more people entering the profession. We've done away with some of the barriers to the profession. So from the numbers you've quoted in 2015 to now, there's been a marked improvement in the numbers coming in. But on the quality of work and actually building a practice, we don't see that happening. So women are still in the minority. We only get family law matters because we are women and we can't do any complex commercial matters or even complex constitutional law matters. So yes, it's still very, very relevant in today.
Sure, that's appalling, that perception that you talk to, that there are certain matters that are more suited for women legal practitioners. Ms. Matolo-Dlepu, if we are saying that there's a marked improvement in women entering the legal professions, but we don't see them represented in some of these key precedent-setting matters and matters that come to define the law in our country, is it a matter of undersupply, or is it a matter of briefing patterns just not adapting, the private sector as well as the public sector not showing confidence in women legal practitioners?
Thank you, Thulasizwe. Remember, in the legal profession, it's a four-way collaboration. Firstly, there has to be a client. Then there will be attorneys who brief advocates. Then from there, we actually feed into the judiciary. So if there's no an active way of making sure that Black female attorneys and advocates are trained or are well equipped and they're briefed with real good work, there's no way the four-way collaboration will work. So the legal sector, the Legal Practice Council has come up with different ways of addressing this issue. The first one is to come up with the legal sector code. We have observed that the BEE, the generic scorecard, is not actually addressing our uniqueness of the profession. So we have actually working together with all the stakeholders and try and come up with the scorecard that is peculiar to the legal profession. We have worked with the Department of Justice. We are working with the private sector and the Solicitor General to make sure that we equip our female attorneys and all those who are previously disadvantaged with more concrete work. And incidentally, which is sad, 60% of practicing attorneys and advocates are small firms. And you find that all the work goes to, we call them the big five or the big six, but like any other industry, the job creation comes from small business. So if the state and the private sector and all other parties are not actually supporting the small firms, there's no way we can actually be able to transform this industry.
If I stick with you for a moment, the Chairperson, Matolo-Dlepu, from picking up from what you are saying, what will it take to start turning this ship around? Will it take incentivizing people along the lines that you are talking of a legal sector code? And by when can we start expecting that to happen? Or will it be a matter of, I don't know, you can't really force people to brief particular advocates when they have matters that they want handled legally? So will it be more an issue that has incentives for people to want to brief more of the underrepresented demographics in as far as the legal practitioners are concerned?
The Legal Practice Council has come with innovative ways of making sure that we transform this profession. The legal sector code actually is one of them. And the training, for instance, we are collaborating with SACITA to make sure that people, whilst they're being trained, they get at least a stipend, because previously people, that is people who are training for advocacy, they were trained for almost a year without receiving anything. So the council made sure that we collaborate with other, like for instance, SACITA to do that. But more importantly is that the legal sector code is already with the Department of Trade and Industry. It's up to them to make sure that before the end of this year it's gazetted. Then you will see a lot of changes, because out of that legal sector code, there will be a legal sector council which is going to monitor the briefing patterns all over from the government. And I always say government has the stick to ensure that the private sector briefs Black counsels and Black attorneys, because they give them work. They give them work. Why don't they use the legal sector code to make sure that they distribute work? And once there is that council, definitely we'll be monitoring that.
So our next point of call will be the Department of Trade and Industry for them to tell us how far with this work. Advocate Platt, perhaps as we draw to a close of this conversation, a jurisprudential kind of question that says, why does all of this matter in our society? But also in terms of, my own understanding is that the advocates profession and other professions, legal professions, serve as almost like a field from where you harvest your judiciary in future. If we're coming from a past where the judiciary, couldn't even be bothered whether you understand the charges that are put before you in the language that's spoken, couldn't even be bothered to get your name correctly, whether you are Khumalo, K-H-U, or you are Komalo, K-O-M, etc., etc. You get what I'm saying. Why does it all matter, these issues that you and I have been discussing within that context?
Yes, that's a very important issue because transformation is still very relevant. I know people like to think that you see 5 or 6 or even 10 black advocates in huge matters and you think transformation has happened and therefore we can rest. But it doesn't, because it is only those few limited black advocates that are getting the work, that are getting recognized, and the rest of the advocates that are black and women are sitting fielding smaller matters, unimportant matters, and not able to grow their practice. So it's important that transformation is addressed and addressed correctly. I think everybody associates, even when you go to the judiciary, associates transformation with lack of merit, because they will say, no, we need to appoint because of merit. We can't appoint on transformation. But that doesn't work. Transformation doesn't exclude merit. It doesn't exclude expertise. It doesn't exclude experience. So I think we need to change that perception, and I think that's a difficult one because that's not easily changed. Because people will always perceive, if they look at me, they'll say, she's a woman, but yet I've got 2 degrees and I'm studying for a 3rd. I've got experience in 2 totally different fields, being finance and law, but they will still see me as a mother and a wife first before they can see me as an advocate. And I think that's the reason why we need to push transformation, because once we have it correct at legal practitioner phase, then it will influence the judiciary. We'll get better judges going to the judiciary. We'll get more representation at the judiciary as well. So it's something that we need to look at. I know that there are few women that are heading various jurisdictions, and that is great, but we need more of it. We can't just be with a few.
Absolutely. I've got to thank you both. That is the chairperson there of the Legal Practice Council, Kathleen Matolo-Dlepu, and Advocate Anthea Platt, who is the deputy chairperson. Look, the point of all of this is that we've come from a judicial system where, in reading some of the old cases, there would be references about an unsophisticated Bantu would not have appreciated X, Y, Z. We're trying to move away from that. Only 2 years ago did Justice Mandisa Maya pen a judgment wholly in isiXhosa. And I said to myself, it's taken us 25 years to have someone say, actually, this is an official language, and if the people involved understand isiXhosa, why not write the judgment in isiXhosa? These are the conversations that we are having about transformation.